Hey friends, we have a brand new episode for you today featuring Brandee of the Wedding Pro CEO podcast. It's a great conversation because she gives us these really tangible steps that we can take to prepare our business for 2024. She talks about this phrase, the engagement gap, or sometimes it's called the wedding gap. Maybe you've heard that phrase kind of floating around the interwebs. And she tells us that it's not something to be afraid of, but how we can feel empowered moving into 2024 and lean on the data, lean on the facts instead of leaning on our fears. So it's a great conversation. You're going to want to take some notes or maybe listen an extra time to soak it all in. But before we get into the episode, I wanted to share with you two brief reminders. The first one is that our registration deadline for our 2024 Austin retreat is coming up on November 30th. So make sure you are registered, that you have your seat saved by November 30th. And the reason we're closing the doors early is because we'll be having like a mastermind for all of our retreat attendees starting on December 1st. So we're going to get to know each other. We're going to talk about, lodging plans, but most importantly, we're going to review 2023 together, talk about our goals, just get our mindset in the right place to get the most out of this retreat experience. So if you have not yet registered, that link is in the show notes for you to sign up. And the last thing I want to tell you is that the new resource, our new digital course, is coming in December. It's called The Six-Figure Seamstress. We're going to talk about everything from the conception of the business dream to building that launch, that successful launch, and then finally developing your routine that works with your home life and balances your business life and pays the bills in between. So it's your complete roadmap to starting your own bridal alterations business. And I'm really excited to share these tools with you. This is what's worked for me personally. It's also worked with other women that I've been able to mentor and coach one-on-one and through our membership, and they're seeing these results. So I'm really excited to share this with you. It's coming your way in December. If you're on our mailing list, you'll get all those details and the reminders coming through, but you'll be the first to know when this is available. This is coming for you in December. Okay. So tune in to Wedding Pro CEO podcast. If you have not yet, that's in the show notes. Register for the retreat. That's in the show notes. And then you can sign up to be on our waiting list for the digital course that is coming up. That's also in the show notes. Okay, that's all I have for now. Now let's tune in and hear what Brandee has to say. Welcome back to another episode of Secrets of Bridal Seamstress. And I'm so excited that today I'm with Brandee, the Wedding Pro CEO. She's the host of the Wedding Pro CEO podcast. If you have not tuned in yet, you're missing out. She's sharing branding strategies and marketing strategies and what she's foreseeing in the future of wedding trends. So that's what we'll kind of tap into a little bit today. Brandee, thank you so much for being here and making time for us.
I am so excited. Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be great.
Yeah. And this is your first connection, it sounds like, with the bridal seamstress community. So welcome.
It is. Yeah. It's interesting. I have someone in my group who does seamstress, but also like custom dresses, right? From beginning to end. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I need to connect her to you. Like she would love this, that you have this whole community of people.
Oh yeah. Okay. After the call.
Yeah.
Well, we're taking names.
100%. Okay.
So for listeners who are unfamiliar with the Wedding Pro CEO, how about you go ahead and tell us about that brand? What inspired you to come into the wedding industry? Or was there some experience before you started coaching wedding professionals?
Yeah, one of the things that makes me really unique as a coach is that I am in the wedding industry currently as well.
Okay.
So so it's great because I feel like I can, when I'm talking about the engagement gap or what's going to happen next year, or how we're dealing with leads this year, I'm going through it with you. I'm not making this up and going, this worked 5 years ago. And so I actually started my planning company in Orlando, Florida 16 years ago. So feels so crazy. Yeah. But in 2007, we opened Blush. And it is 16 years old and it's become one of the largest planning firms in Orlando, Florida. And honestly, I started coaching in 2020. I feel like that's like everyone's story, that they did some kind of pivot, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, in 2020. And it was mostly because I had done a lot of like coaching and speaking in my local market, from people that knew me. But what started happening in 2020 was I had this large team and I also had a lot of connections in the industry. And I felt like I was so blessed to be able to have people to bounce ideas off of, like, what are you doing? What are you doing about cancellations? What are you doing about reschedules? All these things.
Yeah.
How are we strategizing for the future? And it started to become apparent to me that there were solopreneurs or somebody who just might have only one other person on their team. It's like, I don't have these kind of resources. Like, I don't have people to bounce ideas off of, and I need that. And
Right.
so that's when I really leaned into coaching. And I don't even know that I would call it coaching from the beginning. I literally went live every single day for 7 months on Facebook. And I just would talk about like what we were doing, what was happening that day in our business, if we had a challenging client issue, all around the pandemic.
Mhm.
And so I don't even know that it was coaching, to be honest. It was just kind of like, let me help my
Yeah.
industry.
Well, it
And
was
then
really natural. Like,
um
you saw a need, and then you're like, "Hey,
yeah,
this is," and I think that's just like a perfect testimony of like, "You're perfect for this
yeah,
job," because it just, you're filling a need. There wasn't an agenda behind it, you know?
no, not at all. In the beginning, it was just like, people need help. And then Clubhouse came out.
Mhm.
And my husband was like, you're
Oh,
already
take it
doing
off the
Facebook.
Clubhouse.
Honestly, it's so funny to me how it doesn't even really hardly exist anymore, right? When I tell you it was literally the catalyst to my coaching career. Like and other people will tell me that too. They'll be like, I found you on Clubhouse. I found you on Clubhouse.
Yeah.
It just, so many people were on it, and I was already going live daily on Facebook. So I stopped doing Facebook. This was so much easier. I didn't have to do my hair and makeup. I could
Yeah.
just be, on. And I went all in. We did a daily show every single day. We talked about just like what's going on in the industry. And I met so many new students who would come to me and say,
Mhm.
do you do coaching? Do you do one-on-one, whatever? And I also met a lot of other educators who were like, hey, I'd love to have you on my podcast. I'd, love to bring you into my membership. And I'm like, great. So it was super, super organic, but yeah, that's how I got into it. So I'm still a wedding pro. We still have Blush, which is amazing here
Mhm.
in Central Florida in Orlando. And
Yes,
then
I've
I
done some
have,
digging, so I'm
okay,
impressed with what Blush, yes, what you made from
I
that,
love it.
and that
Yeah.
it's been around that long.
Yeah.
Like, thinking of
Yeah.
all trends that you've seen, you could write a book of
I
all those
This is
trends.
true. We've gone through the candy bars. We've got, the candy buffets. Oh my gosh, I hope that never comes back in my whole life. Mason
I had
jars,
one.
baby's
Hey,
breath.
hey, hey. My 2012 wedding, I had a vintage candy bar, and I thought it was really unique.
Yeah. Yep. That's about the time that they were popular. And, but what's been interesting is that I do feel like because of my time in the industry and because I am still a wedding pro, it does make me uniquely, I don't want to say qualified, but I do have a unique circumstance viewpoint on what is happening
I
in the
agree.
industry right now. And I think that's because, I went through the Great Recession, which makes me sound 100. I'm not talking about
It
the Great
does.
Depression, but the one from 2008, like I was part of that, and so understanding how to ebb and flow and that the market is going to come back and people are always going to get married and then like I said, I am still a wedding pro, so I'm still navigating these waters
Right.
just like everyone else is.
Yeah.
So
And you're like responding in real time to, you're seeing the emails come through
yeah.
and like the inquiries. And I love that because it is, I think we've all experienced, the coaches that are like, I remember back in the day when I was, in it and offering maybe
Yeah.
some irrelevant, tips. So I love that. And then how
Yeah.
big is your staff? I mean, your Blush staff has to be, how has that grown?
Yeah, my gosh. It's so interesting how it's grown. I think, I don't know, interesting, I think is the word to describe it because it's like, your business goes just through seasons and it goes through whole life cycles. Like over 16 years, there's been so many different ways that we've run our business that has worked for our business. And I love being able to bring that to my students, to say, here's one way that you can do it. There's no right way, right? There's no
Right.
like, you have to build your business this way. And
Mhm.
so I really love that I've been able to say that, when we did it this way, this is what I loved about it. This is what didn't work. Or, has been really profitable. Like I would highly suggest this. But right now we have 6 full-time staff on our team. And then we have a large contingent of what we call associate planners and contractors. So yeah, so we have a really good time with that. It's
Yeah,
fun.
good for you. And did you always feel like, okay, I mean, did you like watch The Wedding Planner as a kid and feel like this is going to be my dream, or what led you into the wedding industry? Because I feel like you have to be like a special kind of person to,
Oh, for
I mean, I
sure.
love it, but I
Yes.
know that like we're one of a
Not
kind.
everybody
So.
loves it. That's right. It's so funny because anyone who has anything to do with the wedding industry, you have to love it. I mean, you just have to love it because
Yeah.
it's just a crazy industry. Crazy.
Yeah.
I did actually. I will say I always wanted to plan parties. Like I didn't necessarily know that I wanted to be a wedding planner, but I knew that I wanted to plan parties from like birth. I never wanted to do anything else in my whole life. And I was a sophomore in high school when I found out it was actually a major, was that you could do hospitality as a major. I had
Yes.
no idea. I was like,
Yeah.
what am I going to go to school for? And so we lived just down the street from the University of Central Florida, and they were actually opening their School of Hospitality, which is a really prestigious school now, but they were opening it
Wow.
when I was in high school. And so it worked out really great. So yeah, so I went to school for hospitality. I worked at a really large hotel brand here and planned corporate events for the first 6 years. And then I had my oldest daughter, and I just was like, I can't do these kind of hours anymore. I
Oh,
just
yeah. But I'm sure the
Corporate planning is
skills
a
that you
beast.
picked up with planning these corporate level events,
Yeah.
that's invaluable. Like, wow.
100%. Yeah. I tell people all the time, I'm like, if you are going to be in the wedding industry and you have an opportunity to work in a hotel, it just opens your eyes to a whole nother beast
Mhm.
of the
Yeah.
industry. And so I learned so much from it, and I had some really incredible mentors. So yeah, so I started Blush right after I had my first daughter.
Wow. And it was just you. And now look at
Yeah.
this empire that you built.
Ah, so fun.
Yeah. Okay, so because you have all of this history, I'd like to take a stroll down memory lane, and maybe you can share with
Oh
us like your
gosh.
favorite. You already touched on the candy bar thing, which yeah, it was cool. And I will say our wedding was the first in our like circle of friends that had the candy bar. So I'd like to take,
Right.
clip. And then we even had like the little, like the teeny tiny brown bags. And it was like, oh my goodness, maybe
Yes.
it's still a bag. And it was like, yeah,
They're
wow.
so cute.
And
Listen,
I
I'm
think
all here
like
for a candy bar. I love candy, but as a planner, it's like a planner's worst nightmare. It's just a nightmare. There's no other way to describe it.
so I want to hear from you, like your favorite past trends, the worst ones, like the ones that you're like, okay, goodbye, glad those are done.
Mhm.
Like thinking even through COVID, navigating the pandemic. Like I want to hear some good stories.
It's so interesting because when people ask me, what is one of the crazy things that ever happened to you at a wedding? I always in the moment, I'm like, I don't know. Like you block it all out, right? You're like, that happened yesterday, and I only have enough brain capacity to handle what's still on the books. So I always find that so interesting. But I feel like we've honestly just had a really charmed, business venture. If I'm being honest, I feel like, I got to start my business when I was 26, and I was able to, just go like all in, just like all in. And so I feel like there's just been so much over the years. I will say some of the trends that I'm excited are gone would be burlap, because it was itchy and it would stick to all of your clothes. We would wear all black and
Smell.
be covered in burlap fur, or burlap, whatever you want to call it.
I like fur.
Oh, it was awful. The mason jars, just all of we went through a really big phase of like where the centerpieces were made up of like 15 different teeny tiny little vessels. And
Yep.
guess who always got to set that up?
Mhm.
The planners. And it was like
The teeny tiny
setting it up
vessels.
wasn't,
Yeah.
it was awful. It was like, what is happening? And the tear down was the worst, because it'd be like, 1 a.m., you're exhausted, and all of these teeny little vessels have to be packed back up.
Mhm.
And so I'm happy to be, I feel like we're in this stage now of like less is more. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm here for it. I'm here
Right.
for the less is more stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it just to put something there, or does it actually make sense to have it there? So
Yeah. So I'm definitely happy that that stage is gone. I'll say I'm excited for sparklers to eventually make their way out, though I think they're here for like eternity. I don't think
right.
they're
I
going
mean,
anywhere.
exactly.
Yeah. People are always like,
Sparkler
"Oh, we want something
photos are
unique." And
always
I'm
gonna
like,
look good.
they do. And that's the thing when you compare it to what else is out there. It's like smoke bombs, cool, but it's still not sparklers. They're not romantic. Bubbles, cool, but still not sparklers.
Mhm.
Everything is still not sparklers.
Right.
So I'm excited to see kind of where we go with that. But I mean, honestly, I just feel like what I have found so cool about it is that, some of the clients that I worked with in the very beginning of my career, I had one baby, or, I remember one client in particular, I was pregnant with my second, and the mother of the bride, I have treasured some of the mother of the bride relationships that I've had because I was a young mom. Like I was young, I had littles running around and I'm planning these large scale weddings. And, some of them now I've done their third daughter's wedding, their fourth daughter's wedding. And it's been so cool to be invited back over and over. And just to think back to like, I was a baby wedding planner, a baby mom when, I started working with them and they trust me to do all of their family's events. And I had one family that said to me, I feel like you're like part of our family because you're literally here for every major milestone that we have. Like I do their weddings, I do all their major birthday
Mhm.
parties and some of their
Yeah.
corporate events. So it's just been, I think that's the coolest part of it is that you genuinely make an impact and build a real relationship with some of these families. And it's just really cool.
Yeah, yeah. And I think for some of our listeners who they start doing, the bridesmaid dresses and then the bridesmaid comes back as a bride, or you can start
Yes.
earlier, like with like prom sewing, and then they come back as a bride, and
Yes.
then you see them as a bride, and then, they come with their friend. And this just happened to me. One of my brides from 2020 came back with a girlfriend and, oh, go see Nadine for alterations. And now she has a baby, so it's like when you're part
Oh,
of like these big milestones
yeah.
and what kind of blows my mind still is like for us, these are clients, we see a lot of clients. So, but for us, like
Yep.
you're their only bridal seamstress or like you are the only wedding planner. So it's like, it's so much more memorable for them. And it's like, well,
Hmm.
that's really an honor to kind of have that
It
little
is.
place in their heart, It makes you think
Yeah.
of, okay, all these other little details that go into the communication and the experience so that it'll be worth remembering. A good memory.
100%. Yes, 100%.
Yeah. So, okay, we've been hearing this term engagement gap or wedding gap, and I'm really excited to hear your take on it because you've just shared so much good information and you have a really great mindset when we talk about when we I feel like I'm part of it. I'm part of this.
I love it.
When
I
you
love
talk
it. That's what I want.
but we've heard of it as like this like negative big scary thing to be afraid of, but I
Mm.
love how you've taken that positive spin on like how it can benefit your business. So for people who have never heard of that term before, why don't you give us a little like wedding gap 101?
Yes. Okay. So wedding gap and engagement gap are really the same thing. You'll hear those terms used interchangeably, but basically what it is it's the gap in engagements that we're having that are caused by the pandemic. And what I am a data girl. Like I am a data junkie. I want everything to be backed up by numbers and facts and not just like gut feelings because this is way too emotional of an industry to add more emotion to it, right? So I'm always like, give me the facts. So an article came out by Signet Jewelers, and Signet Jewelers is one of the major jeweler manufacturers, and they track 45 points of data that they've tracked for decades. So this isn't new. They've tracked data because it helps them to know what their ring sales are going to be like, right? So based
Right.
on when people start dating and things like that. Well, what they've found is that the average couple dates for 3.25 years, so 3.25 years. And so what's happening, I know, isn't that so crazy? So they've known
That
that for
was
a while.
us
Did you
though.
date for that long? Yeah, me too.
Yes.
Me
Wow,
too.
that's crazy. And this is so great because
Dating
they
to engagement.
are like that, like they're the first stop, right? The engagement ring. So
Yes.
we gotta listen to what they're saying.
And the crazy part is that what I love about it is that they've been tracking this data for over 40 years. And so it's not like, oh, they started tracking it because of the pandemic. No, this
Right.
is something they've been tracking because it helps them with ring sales. But when the pandemic happened, they were able to forecast that this engagement gap was going to happen because in 2020, so many couples were not able to date. You couldn't even go meet people, right? So
Yeah.
you weren't meeting new people. You weren't going out to bars, concert clubs. You couldn't get on Tinder and meet up with somebody. And even if you were newly dating, you really kind of had to shelter in place, right? And so you didn't
Mhm.
move forward in the relationship. And so what's happening now is that we're seeing 3.25 years later that gap in engagements is happening because for 6, 8, 12 months, depending on what state you're in,
Yeah.
you were closed down, you were shelter in
Yeah.
place. So what is really cool about it is that they're saying that we are actually going to see a pop in engagements in 2024. And this is what I love when I say, like, I'm still a wedding pro. I love this because I can see the data and tell you the data. And then I can say, and I'm watching it play out in real time in my own company. So I'm in Florida. I think everyone knows Florida was only closed for like a blink of a minute, right? It was like the talk of the town, but we weren't closed that long. And so, but we definitely saw that gap this summer and into about September. Now it's like the floodgates have opened and it's like, wow, here we go.
Wow,
And
yeah.
so Signet is actually expecting that we are going to see more engagements in 2024 than we did in 2023, which is exciting news for
Mhm.
all of us. But the way to know when it's going to come to you is to really look at about 3.25 years past when your state opened.
And
So again,
I'm
I'm
in
in Florida,
Washington State. So we were the
right?
last
So you guys were closed
state
for a long time.
to open. And then even
Yes.
after that, things were like still very like judgy and restricted even after we were open. So it was like,
Right.
I don't know when, I don't know. But I can feel just this. Usually I have this overflow of all the extra
Yes.
like requests. And I'm like, oh, this year, I mean, I got my quota, so I was fine. But I'm like,
Yeah.
I wasn't turning people away. So I'm like, okay. So and I actually tagged one of my girlfriends in a recent post that you made about this,
Okay.
the data, because
Yeah.
she's in sales and she's like, I'm seeing, I mean, and I think other boutiques also in our
Hmm.
area, they're seeing the drop in sales. And it's like, this is not
Yep.
forever and it's a real thing and it's not you. And it's,
Yep. And I think what I love about the data is that it really is like, this isn't a gut. This isn't you. This isn't a
yeah.
feeling. This is fact. And it makes it so that you're like, I'm not crazy, right? Because
Mhm.
for us, same thing. We had 2023 has actually been a really great year. But what I started noticing is we weren't booking as much for 2024. And I was like, why do we not have as much on the books for next year?
Mm,
And that's the rumblings I started hearing this summer was that a lot of planners, especially, were like, or venues, we're like, we're not seeing 2024 bookings. We're not seeing 2024 bookings.
yeah.
Well, all of a sudden now when we have couples calling us about date availability, they're like, we can't even get a venue. Like we feel like we're freaking out now because all the venues are getting booked up. And I'm like, yeah, because the engagement got, it's like all of a sudden people could date again. People
Mhm.
could go to concerts again. People could, and they were ready. They were like single
Yeah.
and ready to mingle.
Yeah.
Right. And so they moved very, very quickly. So now you're going to start to see this engagement pop. And it really is dependent on your state. So like
Yeah.
New York, California, Seattle, you're going to be a little bit further behind some of the other
Mhm.
states, but I mean, it's coming.
Yeah, and I feel like this is gonna really mirror what I saw in 2021. So these couples who
Yes.
were engaged before the pandemic and they waited and waited, and then it was like, get us in. And
Yes.
2021 was like, oh, like we
Yes.
barely survived it. And so then it's like things kind of evened out, 2022, 23, and then that totally makes sense that that's what we can
Mhm.
anticipate again. So maybe for those of you listening, if you weren't in my state, I don't know when you would have seen that when things did open back up, and then people who were
Yep.
engaged before, but expect like a similar rush and plan accordingly. Like you can raise your price
Yes.
a little bit and take fewer clients. Cause I think we just were not prepared. And it was like, oh, and then I was like, okay, then I feel bad because I want to help everybody. And then it
Right.
was too much. And so now that we can anticipate, been there before, so we know what's coming, how do we kind
Yeah.
of weed out more so who we really want to work with?
And that's really what I'm pushing in the industry. That's why I keep
Mhm.
talking about it because I think a lot of us got caught with our pants down in 2021, 22. Being
Yeah.
super honest and understandably, it was like people cut their staff in 2020. They
Mhm.
were just trying to survive. And then all of a sudden, you had all these reschedules plus the rush of people that had held
Yep.
off on their engagement. And it was just bananas. And
Yeah.
so, really, what I want everyone to do is to say, be ready this time. Be ready to take it. Be ready to make the money off of it. Be ready for great revenue. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. And how have you seen, I kind of am tentative to say this, but like, have you seen this as an excuse for businesses to be like, oh, it's like, like they're being kind of like
Mhm.
led by fear or like, hey, the drop is coming. So that's why you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think most people have felt the drop at this point, and
Yeah.
it's more that they're fearful that it won't come back or that they're
Yeah.
doing something wrong or they don't really know how to navigate it. And so what I love is I have people constantly, because I talk about this so much, that'll
Yeah.
drop into my DMs and say, hey, I know that you were talking that there's a gap, but I really don't think that's what's affecting me. I think it's XYZ. And I'm like, okay, send me your numbers. And I'll have them send me like, how much did you book in 2022 and then in 2023? And I've never once had somebody send me their numbers that I can't say, see that? That's the drop. That's the drop. It's coming. And it's going to pick back up.
Yeah.
And so far it's so fun because they'll message me like 6 weeks later, 8 weeks later and be like, oh my gosh, like I have so many bookings. I'm like, it's
Good. Okay.
it's
Yes.
all data driven. So I think when people don't understand their numbers, that's why I'm constantly saying, don't drop into my DMs, don't come to a coaching call, don't without getting your numbers together first. Like
Mhm.
come with numbers because then I'll show you how to read those. I'll show you what's accurate. But that's a lot of fun too because it empowers you instead of laying in bed at night hoping you're going to make enough money or hoping you're going to book enough. It's like, watch, this is what you need to make. This is exactly how to go get it. And I feel like those numbers are just so empowering to people,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they think it's scary, but it's not. It's very, very empowering.
Right. Right. And I think like for me, I mean, I still have those
Yeah.
moments where it's like I'm hormonal sometimes, or it's like,
Yeah.
oh, and you just you get
Of
nervous, or it's like
course.
maybe it's me, or maybe and it's like, okay, but you have to go back to the facts, and having that like
Yes.
that black and white, that really helps me of like, okay, but this
Yes.
is truth. It's not just my feelings or my fears or like something that I feel like I shared a promotion that kind of tanked or whatever. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
but what's truth here?
Yes, fight fear with facts. I tell everybody that all the time. I'm like, fight fear with facts. And because I'm with you, like, there's definitely times where I go to bed at night and I'll be like, we didn't book anything. Like, I'm freaking out. And
Mhm.
then what do? I go to my numbers to be able to say, how bad is it? Right? Like,
Yeah.
is it actually as bad as I think? And I think, too, what's coming into play a little bit as well is that, we do have high inflation. We do have an election year. There is a war going on. Like, there's so much going on. And
Yeah.
so I do think that people are waiting a little bit longer to book their wedding. It's like, will everything settle out before I book?
Right.
But I went through this in 2008, and I'm here to tell you that what I see during a recession or during a down economy is that people still get married. And
Mhm.
what happens is they say, well, we're going to be really conservative. We're going to not spend as much as we thought we might. They're going to. And what happens is they book you for your most basic service up front because they're being so smart up front, right? They're like, yeah, let's be practical. But then throughout the planning process, they're like, well, but it's my only day. And I know it's a down economy, but I've dreamt of this for 25 years or 30 years. And so they start to add on, add on, add on. So what I would tell anyone that's in the wedding industry right now is to try as best as you can to accommodate maybe a smaller entry level so that they can just get you locked in and then offer a la carte services, offer add-on services, offer things throughout the process that they can upgrade to make their
Yes.
day just as
Yeah.
special as they want it to be.
Yeah. So for our listeners, if you and I love to promote fitting packages, so that's another story for another day. But
Ooh,
if you have, your entry level fitting packages, or you're just getting brides in the door, you focus on the alterations or the fittings themselves, and then once they're with you, you talk about how special it is to have like steaming day before, or you can go to their wedding
yes.
site and you can provide steaming services. Or are you going to be consigning your dress after the wedding, or do you want to keep it? And I kind of love saying that because then they say, oh, consign it. Oh, okay. Well, what are you going to do with it? And then they think, oh, it's going to hang out in my closet. So like, let's get that preservation going, so
Yep.
having just kind of, I don't want to call it a spiel, but these things ready to offer. Or
100%.
like, do you want to have like an heirloom piece made? So these things ready to introduce once you've already had that contact. So I love how you brought that up.
I'm
And
obsessed with
also,
all of that. That is so awesome.
yeah.
I'm
And
like,
like, I love that little
do
confirmation.
this.
Like, they're not gonna click
Yeah.
on your highest package maybe right away, but once they get
No.
to know you and they trust you, and oh, maybe I would really like your support on the wedding day. Like, can you come and do the bustle and do the steaming and stuff?
Yeah.
We don't take that as a no or like a rejection if they're choosing that entry level. So I love that. That's
Yes.
a great thing to
Yep.
tuck away. Yeah. What other trends, whether it's, like budgeting trends or even like style trends, what are you anticipating for 2024?
Oh gosh. I don't know. Trends. I'm like the worst person to talk about trends. I'm always about the data trends, but I will say I do think what we're going to see in 2024 is just a continuation of this move towards simplicity. Like there's just so much going on in people's lives right now. And I think we're going to just continue to see this move towards simplicity. I think we will see slightly smaller weddings. I think that there will be people a little less travel for weddings and things like that. I think destination weddings, though, like where the couple and their very closest friends may go
Mhm.
somewhere and not have quite
I've
the big
seen
weddings.
I've seen a big
Yeah.
in that. Yes. And it's not
Yes. And I
like
think,
just eloping with our photographer. It's like, oh, we have 20 friends
no.
coming because they want it to
Yep.
still be an experience, but just with their nearest and dearest. And funny you mentioned the numbers because I'm always asking about the details when I'm pinning and stuff.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that brides almost are like, well, we invited 200. That kind of used to be, kind of like your typical invite list, but now it's like, oh, it's
Yeah.
so, so they're
Yeah.
recognizing like we don't know these people. So I
They
like,
don't.
and
And
also like that elevated intimate experience is becoming
yes.
more of a trend. So like you can afford to splurge on the really nice dinner for 75 guests as opposed to like, the pasta buffet for 200 or
These
whatever.
huge events.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that we're seeing is a lot of the reason is because of remote work, because you
Mhm.
don't get to know your coworkers nearly as
Oh
much as
yeah,
you
good
used
point.
to, right?
Yes,
So it
yes.
used to be like, oh, well, I mean, if I'm going to invite, these three from the office, I kind of have to invite everybody from the office when you don't even really want to, right? But now it's like, well, you don't really interact with your coworkers nearly as much in remote work. And
Hmm.
so you can easily just invite one or two people from work or nobody from work, because how often do you really talk to them on a personal basis? So I think we're seeing a lot of that too, where people aren't necessarily feeling like they have to invite all of these
Hmm.
people. So yeah, and then just in general, I think one other trend that I want to make sure that everybody is prepared for, and this is going to come, in your sales, but it's really focused on when we start seeing these onslaught of leads coming in, is going to be that Gen Z, which I don't know if you guys know this or not, but Gen Z is in the marketplace, which is crazy to me, but they're like
Yeah.
26 and 27 years old now,
Yeah.
which is insane.
Yes.
So in the next two
Speaking of
years,
feeling old,
if
yeah.
not, I mean, if not sooner, they're going to be your ideal client. I mean, they just are. And
Yeah.
so, they really expect quick responses, like immediate responses, immediate like information. They don't want to have to wait. They want to interact with you on TikTok. They want to interact with you on Instagram. They don't want to go through your workflow. They don't want to send an email. They don't even know how to send an email.
Hmm.
So it is so important that you understand that your automations, they don't care about automations, totally fine. Whereas like millennials were like, I want to make a deep personal connection with you. They don't need to make a deep personal connection with you right in the beginning. They want the information. So I think another trend would be honest, it's an automation, but like I've been teaching my students about how to use the chat bots on Instagram to get quick information to people. That's so important, where you see people
Hmm.
say like, comment consult and I'll send you a link to my consult, right? Or
Yeah.
comment services and I'll send you a link to my packages.
This is
That's
blowing my mind
huge.
because you're absolutely right. They don't care about
They
the
don't care.
which is a little
No,
rude.
which
Okay.
was so different. I mean, but it's such a blessing, honestly, because like the whole millennial, listen, I'm not saying anything bad about millennials, but it was just so touchy feely. And it would be like, you have to be the first to respond, but it has to be a personal response. And you have to like,
Yes.
it just
Mhm.
felt so overwhelming. Right. And I'm like, nobody
Right.
has time for this. And Gen Z recognizes that for sure. And so really it's just about getting them the information that they want quickly, and not, one of the biggest faux pas that I see wedding pros make is to tell people, don't DM me on Instagram. You have to go through my workflow or go to my website.
Hmm.
They're not going to. They're just not going to.
Yeah.
They want to be able to DM you. So setting up these workflows that can work from anywhere, having links to your packages, links to your consult calls, links to your gallery of work is so helpful, because you can just
Mhm.
drop it. Like you can keep them in your phone and just drop it into a DM. So it's really important that you connect with them where they are and in real time, because they're busy and they're just going to keep moving past you if you
Yeah.
try to force them to do something that
Hmm.
they don't want to.
Yeah. And I think the light at the end of the tunnel, or maybe the silver lining, I don't know. The good part about that is that as that new generation kind of moves in, we won't have to appease both, because that has been
Yes.
such a thing. And I know like even for a lot of our members that are like wanting to move into automations, but then like you mentioned that I love how you said they want like a quick reply, but they also want it to be personalized. And it's like, that is
Yeah.
totally it. So like moving into automation,
Yes.
or, setting up that like your inquiry flow or whatever. It's
Yeah.
like, it was such a slow moving process to respond like with care.
It
And
was
so,
painful. Yes.
yeah, so
It
it's
was
kind of
painful.
nice to think, okay, it could be a little bit cleaner. I can see it taking a while to get to that point where we can like not offend our older brides, but also welcome these
Yeah.
younger ones coming in, but so working through the
Yeah.
generation.
Just be prepared to meet them on the different platforms that they're in and to set up is things that are just quick and easy to do from your phone. Remember that, yes, of course they have computers, but typically Gen Z, if they're sitting in front of a computer, it's because they're working. Most
Mhm.
of their personal things are being done from a phone. And so make it very, very easy. I use my orthodontist as an example. My kid's orthodontist, it is like the most amazing experience. It is such a joy to work with them because I can text everything. Like if one of my girls needs new bands or they broke a bracket, I literally have a phone number I can text. I don't have to call, wait on hold, go through their phone tree. When I have to call their pediatrician, I literally would rather scoop my eyeballs out with a spoon than I would to call the
And be put
pediatrician
on
because
hold
it's
for like
like,
half an hour.
oh, and I'm like, this is so painful,
Mhm.
and we're just moving towards an era where we can be more quick. We can, recognize that everyone is busy and get them the information that they need quickly to make a decision.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that can be seen as a really good thing instead of like, oh, we're losing our connection. It's like,
No.
or things are just getting simpler.
Yeah, and you can connect as a seamstress, especially like you get to sit
Yeah.
there and like you said, chat while you're doing the
Right.
alterations and things like that. There's ways to make those connections, and I'm not telling you not to make the connections. I'm definitely, one of the things that's really important is to understand that automations help you to create a wow client experience. They don't take the place
Yeah.
of a wow client
Right.
experience.
Right.
So you still are very involved, but it
Mhm.
helps to just get the information out quickly and to make it
Yeah.
easy for them to book appointments with you and things like that.
And it also makes it easier for both parties that, okay, we're not the right fit. So you're not putting
Yeah.
the emotion and feedback and all this, and then it's like to be ghosted. It's like they're going to get the
Yes.
information that they need, the decision will be made, and then you can move forward together. And that's when you can kind of start like investing or, you know,
Yes.
really being nice. But I'm like, just to get, okay, here's what you need. Does it work? Yes, no. Okay. Are you the right fit for me?
Yeah.
And then we can both move on a little bit faster. Yeah.
Simple.
Yes, and that'll be just perfect timing because that's when all the rush of people will come back. So this is really working well. The
I
generation
love it.
just are working great with
That's right.
what's
That's right.
coming with the new engagement. Okay, so what are some, I really love leaving listeners with like tangible steps, like things we can do. And I know we talked about a lot. I think we kind of really emphasized what is hopefully coming in 2024 or how to anticipate the next wave. So what are 3 things that we can do this week to anticipate the 2024's trends?
Yeah. So one of the things that I would encourage you to do is to go pull your bookings from 2022 and 2023 and really see, am I down? Are my bookings down? Is my average ticket down? Or is it up? Right? Like really to understand. And that takes 10 minutes, really. Go back, pull your numbers from each month, look at the trend, right? And so that would be step one. Step two would be to then forecast what you think based on those 2 years you're going to do in 2024. And
Mhm.
instead of saying, I hope I get enough bookings, I hope I make enough money, go get it, right? Like go look and see, okay, if I did it in 2022 and I did it in 2023, what would make me think I couldn't do that or exceed that in 2024? So I
Mhm.
would say to be just go get it, make those goals really bite-sized and manageable, forecast them based on what you've done in the last 2 years. And the last thing that I would say to do is, guys, this generation is, and honestly the millennial generation, like no, we can't even say it's a young thing anymore, but they're on TikTok. They are on TikTok. I have a love-hate relationship with TikTok. I talk about it all the time on my podcast. I'm a Wedding Pro CEO podcast. You can come over and listen to all of my challenges with TikTok. I have a love-hate relationship with it because I know it's valuable. I can see the people moving from TikTok to Instagram. I can see that it's happening. but man, it's difficult to make a place over there. And it just is. It's been a challenge, and I have fun with it, and I also hate it. But our clients are there. They are there, and other vendors are there too. And as a seamstress, I would think that your number one referral source is going to be other bridal salons and planners, right? So like being known for what you do, showing behind the scenes, showing why it costs, what it costs, because there's so much that goes into it. There's so much expertise that goes into it. And that's what you want to show. That's what you want to have fun with on TikTok. And it's really helping to get you more visible to more people, and then to push those people over to Instagram. So having a really great just marketing strategy, not just thinking, how do I show up, but how do I show up in a way that will move people into being a buyer with me? So if I were to tell you one thing to do this week, it would be really look at, how am I being noticed on social media, whichever platform it is that you're using? And once I'm noticed, how do people move through my buying journey? Is it easy to do business with me? Do I have a link in bio that's clear how to book a consult with me, or how to get more information? Do I have chatbots set up if that's something that you want to do? I have an episode coming up on my podcast about chatbots and how to use them. So those are all kinds of things that you want to be thinking about, because we're going into season, and it's time to take all those couples and run with it.
Yes. Yeah, this is the next few months are so crucial with these kind of like behind the scenes things that we can do while we have a little bit of slow time. When do things pick back up for you? Because I know like around the country it's so
different.
Yeah,
it is different. I think across the entire country, engagement season really starts now, right? Thanksgiving, I would say Thanksgiving to St. Patrick's Day. Yeah. What's interesting to me though is that's planner, venue, photographers engagement season, DJs too. But for a seamstress, it feels like that would be later in the process,
right? So mine is, because when I think about the engagement season around here, that's when I'm really trying to like push, like, here's how to get a hold of me, here's how to pre-book, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And they're buying dresses in January. That's like a big January, February, the dress buying months. And then, you know, they order dresses. Because our big wedding months are like May through October, because we have so much rain. So it's like the outdoor option kind of limited, you know. But again, like one of my girlfriends in Alabama, her heavy season is like early spring and then late fall. Like nobody wants to get married in summer. That's so it's like it just so, and utilizing like your downtime to clean up things, or just really kind of take
create these automations
of what it's like to work.
100%. And I think I think it's episode 212 on my podcast that I talk about chatbots. And I'm telling you guys, I don't think I've implemented anything on social media in the last 5 years that has changed the game so much. And chatbots on Instagram, I've told every single one of my students, I'm like, you will implement this for engagement season. Like, it is such a game changer.
Because I'm thinking of these people who they're my friends, and I'm like DMing them, and then they say, thank you for messaging, da, 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 da. And I'm like, I don't even want to.
No, it's not that.
So tell me,
I hate those.
So it's a little different. Okay. I mean, I can different. Episode 212, but like, that's all I'm envisioning is like,
no, you're fine.
Every time you even like double tap their story, it's like, thank you for messaging. And I'm like, okay, bye. I'm not messaging.
No, it's so frustrating. I hate those. I've always hated Instagram automations. And it's interesting too, because when I say chatbots, immediately people think of like on a website when that silly chatbot pops up and it's not helpful at all, right? And you're like, you can't help me, so don't try. No, this is actually I guarantee you've seen it on Instagram, where an influencer or product, somebody is saying, comment blank, comment some word, and I'll send you whatever, right? Jenna Kutcher and Amy Porterfield both been talking about these all year. Huge. And so I refused. I was like, I'm not doing this. I was finally talked into doing it in August, and I cannot tell you how much of a difference it has made. And the reason is because it makes sense when you think about it. Telling somebody to go click your link in bio is like, it's an extra step. They have to then go to your profile, find the link, and then find which link you were talking about, right? Versus if you're talking about, you know, booking a seamstress, right? Oh, this is how I would use it as a seamstress. I would do a really great post about what goes into the alterations and how far out you need to book your alterations, right? I would do a really great post about that. And then in the caption, I would say, make sure to get on our calendar now for your alterations. Comment alterations or comment consult or comment, whatever you call
I do
your
like
discovery
emojis.
call.
Comment with your favorite
Yeah.
with pink star emoji or pink heart
So
emoji,
this,
whatever.
you have to make it very specific, right? So it could
Mhm.
be like, comment whatever, an emoji, and then that will trigger a DM to them, and that DM will say something like, "Hey there, we're so excited to get started on your alterations. We can't wait to get you booked in our calendar so that we can make sure we have plenty of time to do your alterations. Here's the link to book." And it literally sends them a DM link to book. And the cool part about that is that I have an 86% click through rate on mine, and so it's crazy
Wow.
how many people
Wow.
actually do it. An 86% click through rate is
Yeah.
crazy. But these work because people actually want it, first of all. Second of all, because it opens up that DM, you now have an open door to a warm conversation with them. So you can click into the DM yourself because you can see that your bot DM'd them. And so then you can follow up and you can say, "Hey, Sally, I saw that you got the scheduling link for your alterations. I can't wait. Tell me more about your dress, or where'd you buy your dress, or what kind of
Mhm.
fabric is your," whatever,
Yeah.
just to
Yeah.
create that warm
Yeah. Yeah.
relationship.
Mhm.
And that's how it's automations enhance your workflow. They don't take the place of, right? So now
Yeah.
you've got this warm DM conversation that you can have, and you're getting people booked onto your calendar. Here's the second piece of that pro tip: pin that post. So if that's going to be your post to get people to book a consult, make a great piece of content about why people need to book early, pin it to the top of your Instagram profile. Now, every time new people come and they find you, they see that as the first post. They're like, "Comment consult, let me get that link, book the
Mhm.
consult." So it's just a really easy way to make sure that people are constantly flowing into your funnel.
Yeah. Okay. I'm literally gonna do that today on both accounts. That is
Yeah,
awesome.
it's so fun. They're awesome. If you go on my account, you can see that my first 3 pinned posts all have a chatbot automation. And the top pin post that we did, we made it back in August. We're recording this on Halloween.
Yeah.
And every single day, I wake up to at least 5 or 6 people that have commented
Oh my
my,
goodness.
my bot, because it's just sitting there waiting for people to do it. So it's completely passive. I have to do
Yeah.
no work for it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that
it's
is
cool.
awesome. And it is a lot more, like you said, personable than we're giving it
Yeah.
credit for. So that's really cool. That's
It
really
is very
cool.
personal. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot better than hashtag link in bio. So
Oh gosh, yes. No more link in bio. I think it's going to retire link in bio. I really do. I
yeah.
think it's going to end up doing away with
Yeah.
it, which I'm here for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what I'm doing, I'm saying like, hey, my DMs are open. And what's so
Yeah.
funny is there's a website. Well, the brief research that I've done is like you go to a separate, like a third party to get that thing started. So I've gone to the third party and I've investigated, and I just need to pull the trigger and do it. Talk me
Yeah.
into it.
Yep.
Those are your
Yep.
3 tips.
It's
You
so
got
good.
TikTok, you got to look at your data, and you got to create this little, very friendly and easy to implement automation. Boom. We have a busy week,
Yep.
so
Done and done.
really. All right. So where can we find you? Because today was so good. I know listeners are going to want to hear more. So where can they find you?
I love Instagram. Come find me on Instagram. I'm at Brandee Gar. Drop in my DMs. Tell me that you heard me on this podcast and say hi. I love, love, love that. And then I would love for you to come over and listen to the Wedding Pro CEO podcast. Really, genuinely, it's for all wedding business owners, and highly recommend episode 212. I think it's going to be a major game changer for everyone this engagement season. So, yeah, come over and say hi. And you can find any of my products by commenting on my posts or clicking the link in bio if you want to learn more about coaching.
Great. Well, thank you so much. All right. So listeners, let us know what you think. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment or reach out with any questions you may have to either one of us. All right. Thanks, Brandee.
Yes, I love it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and share this podcast with a friend. And if you're feeling really generous, leave a review. Thanks, everyone.